Hi, I'm Paris, and I'm not an especially religious person. I don't go to church every Sunday, but I do feel guilty about not going to church every Sunday, which as a Catholic I think means I get partial credit for that. But I know some people, when they have a life-altering experience, like a cancer diagnosis, they find religion or they return to religion, and I think that has a lot of value if it helps to bring you peace in your life. But I tell you all that by way of telling you that a week ago I did attend a healing mass down in the valley, which is the area right on the border of Texas with Mexico. Once a month at this Catholic church that I attended when I lived down in the valley, and I have always liked going there ever since. It's always quite a production, the Mass there on Sundays, because they bring mariachi up from Mexico who perform the traditional music you would expect to hear at Mass, but also some music you might be a little bit surprised to hear, but it's all very nice and it has that mariachi flavor to it. They have a healing service. It's wrong to call it a mass because it's after the mass on the Saturday evening, but a healing service is a little more freewheeling than a mass. Now, I knew about this service and thought if we go down there on some weekend, I would like to stop in on Saturday to participate in the service. So I went there with the intention, having prostate cancer, that I would go up when it was my turn. Everyone stands in a line and you go up to the priest who puts the hands on the head and says some things, and then some people, just if you've ever seen the more charismatic churches, some people start shaking and they fall down on the ground, and there's a catcher basically behind the person being healed that catches you under the arms and lets you more gently lie down on the ground until that passes and you feel you can get up and move along so more people can come in. So at the service that I attended, they didn't even stop the line of people. They basically let the people down on the ground just a little bit out of the way, and they left them there, and they just kept bringing the other people up until that person felt like they could get up and move along. But most people don't have quite a strong reaction. They thank the priest who does that, and then they move along and maybe go downstairs to where they have the altar where they say additional prayers, light some candles, do that sort of thing. And when I entered the church that day, I got that peaceful feeling that I get on the occasions that I go to church, and I do think it would be good for me to go more often because I could certainly do with more feelings of peacefulness in my life. But I get that kind of relaxed, peaceful feeling from the smell of the incense that they used earlier in the Mass when I should know the name of the thing that they swing. But anyway, the incense and the candles, and there's just a particular smell to the church, and the soft music in the background, and everyone with the hushed voices. So I was relaxed and at ease as I entered, but I realized as we went and found our seats that I wasn't going to receive healing energy for myself. A couple days before that, just by chance, because I never go on Facebook, maybe once a year, and I had just gone on to Facebook because they were sending me some message that there were some notifications waiting for me, so I went on it, and I was really shocked to see that my best friend from back in junior high school days had been diagnosed with very serious cancer. It was a very sudden development, and I was shocked, and then had trouble getting a hold of him, getting in touch with him, because it had been so long since the last time we communicated, and I felt bad that I hadn't done a better job of maintaining the friendship over the years and being there to support him. So I decided any healing energies I was going to receive, I would just sort of be the conduit and pass along to him. I don't know if it works that way, but that's what my thought process was. So my wife and I, we tried to sit as close to the front as we could, but it was pretty crowded, and by the time the service started, I would say all the way to the back, pretty much a full house. A lot of people needing healing, a lot of people wanting to feel better. So the priest came out. He actually came out via a wheelchair and was pushed out, and I thought he was going to have to do the whole service from the wheelchair, but no, he got some help. He got out of it and leaned back against the table. That's the altar, right? So that supported him so he could stand up and explain what was going to happen and how people should participate. And for being in his 80s, he still had a lot of energy and a lot of presence that I remembered from 25 years previously when I lived in the valley. I really liked that about him. So he got the show started, having the mariachi play some upbeat music, and singing along to that and inviting everyone to sing and to get everybody in the mood for this. And then we were going to start with the healing your neighbor part of the service, where everyone had to turn to the right, put your hands on the back of the person to your right, and then you were going to ask there be healing for this person and repeat sort of what he said about out with the cancer and the diabetes and the depression and the anxiety and long list of ailments, and to do your best to impart some healing energy to that person who, a few minutes later, when everybody turned this way, would put their hands on your back and do the same for you. Now, my wife was to my right, and so I had my hands on her, and I know some physical ailments she could use help with, so I was concentrating on healing energy for those things. But right next to her was a woman who didn't turn that direction. And I was just sort of shocked when I saw the look on this woman's face, because she was looking towards us and just standing maybe 3 feet away from my wife. And she looked just so hopelessly lost. And some of the people in the pew in front of us were motioning to her kind of with their heads like, hey, you're supposed to turn the other way. At first I thought maybe she was with some of these other people in the pew in front or behind, and maybe there wasn't room, so she sat in our pew, but she was with them. They brought her and they were taking care of her, but no, nobody came over to comfort her or to be with her. And just this look of being lost and of loss on her face was just, I don't think I've been face to face with someone who had that look. And so she wasn't turning, but my wife put my hand out to her to like hold her hand, and the woman put her hand out, and so they held hands during this part of the ceremony. But the woman was like looking off towards, I guess, the statue of the Virgin Mary, with just tears running down her face. And I thought to myself at the time that, my first thought was, she must have something really terrible. But I realized that look isn't the look you have for yourself. When you get the news of a cancer diagnosis or something terrible, you can, feel angry about it. You can feel scared about it. But that look of loss, in my mind anyway, it had to be for someone else, most probably a child, because if you got that news about your child, I could see that being the look on your face. So we went through several minutes of the healing going in that direction, and then we're told to turn the other way, and that woman thanked my wife for holding hands with her, and when we turned, she did put her hands on my wife's back, and then we did the healing energy this direction. And again, as I was thinking, any healing energy come to me, I'm sending to my friend. So after that, we sat down, and I think at that point they passed the basket around for the collection. There was a second part then that started, which was the community healing the ill together. So anyone who felt like they wanted to receive healing went up and stood on the steps at the front of the church and faced out. And I guess we put our hands up to receive the energy. And the people out in the pews, the ones who weren't as in need of healing or didn't need any healing, they repeated what the priest was saying, and there was music along with this, and they were basically sending the healing up to us, and we were on the steps receiving the healing. And I guess I didn't mention, most of this was in Spanish, and I missed the instructions at that part, standing up on the steps, that we were supposed to close our eyes and bow our head and then put our hands up. And so I didn't know, so I was looking at the people out there as they were sending the energy up. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic to see what they were putting into it, how much they were wishing for our good health and improvement. It was nice. I'm not much of a joiner to be in clubs or groups or that kind of thing, and maybe that's why I don't go to church regularly either. I don't really get into that community, but I have to say it was really nice being in the middle of that community for that experience, all the people around me feeling they were receiving that healing, and all the people out there putting their best effort into sending us healing. So we went, sat back down. I think there was another collection. Baskets were passed again. And then we were told if you wanted to have a hands-on healing with one of the priests, that you should go and get in line. And we really wanted to go with the priest that we remembered from 25 years ago, to go, and the one who was brought out in the wheelchair and ran the whole thing. There were other priests, so there were a couple over here and a couple over here, and then the priest that we wanted to go up to in the middle. And that was the longest line because he's most well known. And so anyway, we got way back in line for that. And we sort of watched what was happening at the other healing stations because we couldn't see really over the people in front of us. But we could watch the other two lines moving up and the various responses people had to the healing, which was interesting. I think my wife felt it was a little off-putting, some of the reactions that some people had, that some people might say it's kind of over the top. But I think whatever allows you to leave that service feeling good, then that's the way to go. And if for some people it means, flailing and being caught and laid back down for a few minutes, okay, more power to you. Apparently, it doesn't slow the line down because they just go right around you. So the line we were in moved pretty slowly, and it was 25 minutes, I think, before we finally got up to the front. By that time, the less in demand priests from the sides, their line was gone, and so they came over to see if they could take some of the folks from this very long middle line. But we were in the middle line because we knew who we wanted to see. And so just as my wife and I got up there and we were going to be next, there was a priest to the side. Come over here. But yeah, no, we do not see you. And if you were a couple, then they would put the hands on and do the healing 2 at a time. And so that's what we did. We linked arms, and then we went up and got to have the priest that we wanted to put his hand on our heads and say a few things, and then sort of a push on the head, which is the point where if the people are going to have the stronger reaction, that's where they have it. But we didn't, and we thanked him, and we did go down to the back where there's another altar and the Virgin Mary and the candles, and we did all of that too. And at the end of all that, I didn't feel any more healed than when I went in, but that wasn't my goal. Now, when my wife and I left the church, we were both in a surprisingly good mood. Of course, we discussed what happened with the woman who was so lost, and held hands with my wife for those minutes, and how I didn't know I was supposed to close my eyes when we were up there receiving healing from all the people out in the seats, and about how we both pretended we couldn't see the priest over here trying to get us to go over to him. We stayed right with the one we wanted to be on. So we talked about that, we laughed about that, and I don't know that either of us felt especially different physically, but I think we both felt a little bit lighter, like a little bit of weight had been taken off of us, even if it's just temporarily. I would say a little feeling of peace from having gone through the experience. And I'm sure there were people there with very desperate situations, extreme pain, and can't get through the day kind of things. And if they could come away from that, just even whether it's for a few hours, maybe the rest of the evening, to have that feeling of some weight's been taken off. As they say, by sharing your troubles, you can make them lighter. And so by going to this service, you're sort of giving over control of the whole situation to a higher being, and by doing that, it makes you feel a little bit lighter, and again, you have a little bit more peace. So if you don't go in expecting too much, like an instant cure, but rather that something good is going to happen to you from the experience, that you feel a little more peaceful, you feel a little lighter, maybe you sleep a little better that night, and having slept better, the pain's not quite as bad the next day, because the mind controls a lot of these things and our experiences of them. And even that Jesus take the wheel kind of feeling, where you've done everything in your power, and so you're putting it in the hands of a greater power, that can free you up from having to focus so much on your illness, and maybe give you a little bit of energy to deal with other things that you need to. So I don't have anything more profound to offer. Just that was my experience with going to get healed. but then deciding someone else needed the healing more than me after all. But even so, coming away from the experience feeling more lighthearted and peaceful, and so I benefited from it, even though I wasn't looking to receive those benefits myself. And maybe that's really what a blessing is. Now, am I going to go to church this Sunday? Yeah, probably not. Am I going to feel bad about not going? Yes, I will. It's life, back to normal, but maybe I gained a little bit of wisdom and understanding and hopefully compassion. And I'll see you on the next review.